Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello everybody and welcome to Race 2 of the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV. We're at one of the most iconic racing circuits in the world and certainly a driver's favorite. We're at Francorchamps in Belgium. We have an interesting race ahead of us being held here on the iRacing platform. We certainly had an interesting race last week. We had a two-car battle between Kane Halliburton, who will be joining us tonight, and Boots, who unfortunately will not be joining us, but we still have a very interesting race on our hands. I am Ron Mullins, and joining me in the commentary booth is J.R. Gregory with the wonderful Samuli Kumo in the virtual production hauler. Now, J.R., a very interesting race last week at Road America. This track is sort of similar. You have we have varied corners, some slow, some fast, some sweepers, some very just quick corners that you get over with, pretty much with a snap of a finger. And we've also got some very long straightaways as well, which play very nicely into effect with the mega slipstream that these cars have. So do you think we're going to have a similar race to the one we had in Road America, or do you think it's going to be different?
There are certainly going to be a lot of similarities for the reason that you mentioned, Ron. This is a course with a couple of beautiful long straightaways, high-speed sections, high-speed sweepers that will suit these radicals. Lots of mechanical grip, lots of downforce, and the ever-present draft on the Kemmel Straight. As you noted last week, the speed differential that you can make up taking advantage of the draft on the long straights is substantial, and on every lap on that Kemmel Straight we are going to see cars drafting, and the only questions are, if you're the car in front, do you take the normal racing line and try to get an over-under into Lecomte? If you are the car behind, do you try to go inside or outside? The draft is there and the choice is up to you. What are you going to do with it?
I think we're going to see a lot of weaving going down the Kemmel Straight personally, because, I mean, we saw a little bit of it at Road America of these drivers trying to break the draft, but I think that's going to come into play really heavily on the massive straightaways we have here. I believe in Formula 1, some of these drivers are entering about 200 coming into the chicane, as we see Philip Vanden Herk going through now. Herc had a very interesting race last season, as we've seen him go a little bit wide and nearly go through the gravel, but he manages to keep it on the road. A very interesting race last season at this very track. It was towards the end of the year, but it was still a very interesting race from him. He showed a lot of pace early on, started up at the front, then got involved in an incident that really wasn't his fault, then trying to catch up and trying to retake the lead from, I believe, Felix Samoas, who will be joining us, as he usually does on these races. he had a very interesting race, got involved in that lap 1 incident, as I said, and then when trying to catch up to Felix Samoas, had a fairly clumsy spin coming out of the final corner, so certainly he's going to try and look for retribution tonight. We saw a lot of drivers looking for retribution and trying to make up for mistakes they made last week in Road America. We saw a beautiful comeback drive from Blanco, who I believe had a mistake early on. He was relegated towards the back of the field. I believe he was running 10th. During the broadcast, we were trying to have a conversation about whether or not he could actually make it up into the top 5. Then we saw a decent amount of chaos towards the end, and he did actually get that top 5, so props to him. We have a lot of competition in this series, as you really expect. We have a lot of big names, big names from this series standards. Halliburton, your last race winner. You also have Blanco, as you see on screen now, coming through the final series of very fast corners going into the chicane. I think the chicane is going to be the scene of some, how can I put this without annoying some drivers? I think we're going to see some overly opportunistic moves going into there, and we might see a couple accidents.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely a temptation coming through Blanchimont, which is a little less high risk in these cars due to the ground effects than some other cars. But after you've laid it all on the line, gotten through Blanchimont fast, and you see that braking zone coming up for the bus stop, it is oh so tempting to stick a nose inside there. But last week we saw some great, very close, respectful driving. We saw some side-by-side and some very interesting parts of Road America, and the drivers were able to pull it off. So if you are tuning in, I think you are in for a treat. We've got some excellent drivers on the grid today. Great track and really enjoyable cars. So we're glad you're here with us.
We've got a very talented field. We've also got a fairly tight field, all things considered. For over a 2-minute lap time, the field right now is only separated by less than 3 seconds, as you can see. 2.751 between Maruta in 23rd and Halliburton, your previous race winner, down there at the pole. He is going to grab the pole position today as qualifying is officially over. So Halliburton, your last race winner, grabs the pole position for tonight's race at a very decent 212.260. Then we have Tim Birdie, who is a name that I believe I have seen before in the series, in second. Aaron Baba in third. Philip Herc, as we were talking about before, in fourth. Rudolf Nagel, who I don't believe we've seen in this series before, in 5th. Felix Samoas, who we've definitely seen in this series, in 6th. We've got Iwan Bremer in 7th. Andreas Frederick, who is also a stalwart of the series, in 8th. We have Bjorklund, I apologize for that butchered pronunciation, in 9th. And then we have Christian Lower rounding out the top 10. Looking through the rest of the field, we have Rafael Blanco in 11th. We have Bastian Lindau Lindlau, sorry, I butchered that pronunciation last week, and I'll probably continue to do it this week. He is in 12th. We have Busan in 13th. I butchered that as well. We have Pedro in 14th. We have El Amiri in 15th. We have Ayani in 16th. Jorge Gonzaga in 17th. Barry in 18th. And we have a very tight pack. I can't even go through all the drivers. So we've got the lights on. We have a very interesting race on our hands. We're going to get the 5 lights on, then the drivers are going to be on their way into this very tight turn 1. La Source is usually the site for some dramatic moments in Formula 1 and just real life racing period. Looks like we might get through clean. Some drivers going very close to each other, but we managed to get through there cleanly. They're going to go through the short chute before they hit Eau Rouge and Radion. This will be an interesting section in these cars. Certainly was interesting last year the way the cars handled. Ooh, that is very tight between those two. I believe that is Nagel and Bjorklund in 4th and 5th. Those two got very close exiting Radion, and Samoas is going very slowly. Not sure what happened there. He might have made a mistake. He is looking very slowly. He is chopped meat.
And you got to slow down for sure. He went wide on the entry of Eau Rouge there. And keep an eye on Fitzpatrick here. It looked like he was unable to set a qualifying time. We know he's one of the faster drivers, and he has already picked up 6th position. So he's looking like he's going to be the hard charger in this one.
Oh yeah, last race he did in this series was at Barber that I had to commentate all on my own, and it was just basically talking about how Sam Fitzpatrick put a total smackdown on the field. He's definitely starting towards the back. He definitely has a lot of room to make up, but he is definitely going to be a factor throughout this race. And at a track like this, which has a decent amount of overtaking opportunities, certainly so with how the slipstream comes into effect in these races, I think he definitely has the opportunity to make it from 18th where he is now, maybe even to the front by the time these 11 laps are over. So far, fairly clean start. We saw Barry have an incident going into the Lake Calm chicane at the end of the Kemmel Straight. But besides that, we've had a very clean start so far. Very clean. It's certainly a lot better than last year where we had incidents galore throughout the races all of last season. So it's definitely a nice change of pace as we're following Lindlau, and we change to Rafael Blanco, who's going side by side with Bremer. That is very close between those drivers. They managed to get through, though. That is interesting area to go side by side through. This another very interesting area to go through. There's going to be close between these two drivers, and it looks like that Iwan Bremer is going to take that position, or is he? Rafael Blanco, they're still going side by side. This is definitely a very hot battle, and we see two other drivers going side by side right behind them. That is Hurricane Lower going side by side right behind them. Very interesting racing so far.
And really nice start from these drivers. As we were discussing earlier, we saw some great, respectful, very skilled side-by-side racing at Road America, and we just saw it again there in the bus stop, everyone making it through clean and respectful, and the race goes on. It's every bit as good as we were expecting.
It's nice having a smooth race on our hands. This is very close between these five drivers. That's contact there. There's multiple cars off, and oh boy, Lower, he was close to taking out a bunch of cars there. Luckily, I believe he only made contact, like a hair's contact with another driver, but that is disaster for him. Ooh, this is going to be very tight on the rejoin, and there's no incidents there. We saw two incidents in the span of about pretty much at the exact same time. We saw an incident ahead where we saw some smoke. I'm not sure if that was a lockup or a near spin or what, but we certainly saw a big incident there between those drivers. That was a very tight pack there. We saw another driver go off. I believe that was Boosen there going through No Name Corner. I believe that was. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about incidents, and then that happened, so maybe we did the commentator's curse. Maybe we shouldn't talk about clean racing. There's some tight racing here, though, between Lindlau and that is Cadora, I believe. That is Cadora. I should really get my names right. Yes, that is Cadora in Lindlau, and now Samoas is involved after that terrible start. He is down in 12th, so not a good start to the year. He's usually a perennial race win contender, certainly was last year, and right now he's trying to battle to get back into the top 10. Those two drivers are going side by side with each other at the very fast part of this track. This is a very hair-raising section of the track too, but an overtake is certainly possible as we saw Samoas get the move done there. It's not over yet as Doro, as we see another car going off, spinning the pit entry. That is Nagel. Tough break for him. I believe he was a driver that was so involved in the incident at the Lacombe chicane last lap, this lap. So two incidents in one lap. That's certainly a shame. And you said it earlier, Fitzpatrick, he's actually dropped back. He might have made a mistake there. He's now down in 21st according to our timing screen. So might have had some kind of incident on that last lap. Certainly did pick up another spot there.
Not sure what happened to Fitzpatrick there. He was definitely clawing his way up the field. He may have been involved in one of those incidents in the back, and in the background there, I think we saw some people serving slowdowns. It's can be very sketchy coming up through Eau Rouge there. You go just a little bit wide on the exit, and you get a substantial, like 5-second slowdown. So it can be heartbreaking when you're running a good race and go what just feels like a tiny bit wide and have to eat that big penalty.
Then right as you're trying to serve that penalty, going down the Kemmel straightaway, you are having to drop off massively. I believe that was the issue that Samoa's had on the start, which is why he was dropping back like a rock through the field. He has made a rebound. He is still, certainly, I wouldn't say he's in the fight for the lead, really. Halliburton is really in a zone of his own at the moment right now, about a second and a half ahead of Baba in second, and Birdie about 0.7 of a second behind Baba. So certainly the midfield is the interesting battle to watch at this point in the race. We saw some incidents last lap. We're seeing a lot of clean, very respectful racing, but of course, when you're racing as hard as you can in cars that are pretty much equal with drivers that are pretty much equal too, you're bound to see some kind of accident. So we have seen a few incidents so far in this race, but so far very clean, respectful driving, and that's certainly good from our perspective, JR.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, these cars are very well balanced. We've got a very high skill, pretty well balanced field here. So you want to pick up that extra tenth, that extra 2/10, set yourself up for a pass. It's going to involve taking some risks. And in these cars, high risk, high reward, especially if you get a little bit too much curve and break that aero seal on the bottom of the car, and you'll go from tons of downforce to zero very, very rapidly. So we see a couple people losing traction, scratching their way out of the bus stop.
I think, I believe, yeah, that is Gonzaga that had a very strange moment. I think he might have just gone way too wide into the first part of that bus stop, overshot his braking a little bit, and that set himself up for near disaster going through the second part of the bus stop. But it's a very interesting corner to get right, obviously. You mentioned the curbs. Hitting those curbs, it's basically a backbreaker there as we're seeing these drivers go 3 wide. That is the battle for 4th position. We're following Frederick, but we see Blanco and Björklund involved in this battle. This is very close. It's basically a 5-wide battle. 5-car battle. We saw them going 3 wide, going through those first series of corner. I say first series of corners. I don't even know where I am on track. Oh, right as I was talking about to say Lacombe, we saw an incident there in Lacombe. That's Nagel had another incident there. We saw him being involved in an incident early on, as we're seeing another multi-car incident in that corner. We're going to get a replay here to see what happened. Is this an overtake gone wrong? They're going to go 3 wide here into Lacombe. That is very tight. Ooh. Oh, boy, that is tough luck. That was Chesworth, sorry if I butchered your name, spinning there. It's definitely a corner to get wrong, because obviously you hit the curb there. It's a fairly high curb, so if you just hit that in the wrong way, you're setting yourself up for disaster. And unfortunately, Nagel was caught in the crosswinds. Really nothing he could do there. Just had a car parked right in front of him and really didn't have anywhere to go.
Tough break there for both of them. Gosh, it's a tough spot. People braking at the absolute limit coming off the straight, trying to pick their way through Lacombe, maybe pick up a position or two, and as you said, really nothing the following driver could do.
That's a very tough break for those drivers. Certainly race is over for them as they're in the pits now, and pretty much a race over for them as they're going to go multiple laps down here. But still very interesting race going on. We've still got a very long way to go. We're only halfway through this race now. Well, not even. We're on lap 5 of 11, so we certainly have a long way to go in this race. 11 laps on a short track that's like 2 miles long is nothing. Here, when you're driving on a 4-mile track, which is even long for Formula 1 cars, it is a very long way to go in this race. As we're going to get the battle here towards the front of the field, this is going to be maybe another bout of 3 wide action here. Hurrick goes for a very bold move. I believe that was Hurrick. Actually, no, that's Frederick. I apologize. Went for a very bold move going from the inside of the track and then went back to the outside. This is close between these drivers. They are shuffling for position here. They are very close. One mistake for some of these drivers and it can end in total disaster, but it's been clean for these drivers so far. We're seeing Hurrick and Blanco go very close there, and that was also Hurrick going very close to the back end of Blanco's car, but they all get through cleanly. This is a very heated battle, and this might be the battle to watch out for the rest of this race.
You'd have my vote for that. That was crazy. Blanco coming off the Kemmel Straight didn't quite cover the inside, didn't quite cover the outside, and as a result got passed on the right and the left. My goodness, what a move.
I believe it was Ricardo Zonta getting passed by Michael Schumacher, while getting lapped by Michael Schumacher and Kimi Räikkönen at this very track back in, I believe, 1998. That was very similar to that, of course. That definitely, it's not a Formula 1 race. We're not running in Formula 1 cars. We're just doing a weekly series race for the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV on iRacing. So I guess it's not the best comparison in the world, but there's still some very heated racing between these drivers. And we've seen a lot of heated battles throughout this race, and I'm sure Björklund is he's had a fantastic race. As you can see on the other battle graphic we have, on the corner of your screen. He has made up 5 positions so far, so that is a very well-constructed race from him so far. I believe he has gone through the field more than anyone else. I will check that real quick.
That looks like we got Hudson at about +9.
It's 9, wow.
Yeah.
And
Bjorklund,
yeah,
Friedrich,
Nagel at
and
minus
Blanco,
18, so they're the biggest winners and losers from this race so far. Nagel, of course, involved in that incident, as we saw a couple laps ago, so he's down 18. Very tough race for him. Probably wants to forget about this one, might have to wash away his sorrows with a bottle of scotch after this. But Aaron Hudson putting a very good drive together so far, up 9 positions, so very good drive from him. We didn't see, well, we haven't really seen a lot from him so far this race. He's just put together a quiet drive, and saw a lot in this series how if you just put together a quiet drive, don't make any mistakes, you can cut through this field like a hot knife through butter. And I think we've definitely got some drivers that I think are going to make up big positions, as we see another car go off. That was nearly a spin there. Bauer there going through the runoff area at the Lacombe chicane, so tough break for him. We saw another change of position there in this big hornet's nest of a battle here of these drivers. I think it was Bjorklund and Blanco that swapped positions going through that series of corners, so that was a very interesting move there. It is an area where you can see some overtakes, because that is a very driver skill oriented section of the track. So if you make a tiny little mistake, either just lead the brakes too hard, lock up a tiny bit, and just go a little bit wide, you can set yourself up for losing a position. But these drivers are nose to tail here. This is absolutely awesome so far in this race. This is must-watch television, even though we're not even on TV.
Absolutely. And Van der Herk, again, last season's overall points leader, probably came into what was him a disappointing 4th at Road America last week. You see him sniffing around there behind Blanco. So Blanco's trying to deal with the traffic in front of him, with Van der Herk sticking his nose in again here, entering the bus stop. They're going to go through the first part of the bus stop side by side. Blanco just manages to pinch off the corner, but we have a hard braking zone in La Source ahead. See what Van der Herk can do with that, as he's looking again.
This battle is looking absolutely absurd. We've got more drivers getting involved in this. Eventually, we're going to have most of the entire top 10 battling for a couple positions here. They're still going side by side. One of these drivers is going to have to lift, but I suspect that neither one will. I think Blanco is going to get the position going into Eau Rouge and Radion. That is very close between those drivers. That is very close up ahead between Frederick and Bjorklund. That was very close between those two. And here we have another battle for second between Baba and Bertie. Those two have ran a quiet race. These two certainly haven't here between Frederick and Bjorklund. They're going side by side into Lacombe. Bjorklund is going to have the inside, but Frederick has a great run. He's going to get the inside here now. Those two are going side by side. Neither of them wants to bail out of this. Those two are running very clean and also running very hard, trying to grab these positions. They're not even battling for a podium position here, and these two are racing their tails off here, just trying to beat the other. This is fantastic so far.
Absolutely epic driving, and I love that outside move into Lacombe. And if you're going to get good at Spa, you're going to come down that Kessel Straight with the draft. The driver in front is going to cover the inside. You have to master that outside pass on the entry to Lacombe, and we just saw a great example of it there. They maintained side by side through the next couple of corners, but I believe Friedrich was able to escape, but maybe not for long. We'll see what Herc has up his sleeve next.
Was a 4-car battle, now it's a 5-car battle, and probably with the way these drivers are racing and really slowing all themselves up, I believe actually, is it a 6-car battle? Yes, it is. I'm very great at counting. You can tell I did great at math in school, but these drivers are racing so hard, and with how hard they're racing each other and really slowing each other up, I believe we might get even more cars involved before this race is said and done. This is absolutely fantastic stuff here, as we're going to see look like Blanco and Herc look like they're going to try and go side by side going into the bus stop chicane, but that is not going to work out for him. But if they stay line of stern here, if you try and just sleep, if you just try and stay in the driver ahead, if you try and stay in their slipstream, you can set yourself up really good going down the Kemmel Straight and going into Lacombe. I think a lot of these drivers are going to try and set themselves up. Ooh, that's Frederick running wide for some strange reason. I'm not sure. We heard something in the Radical, the chat here in this iRacing session. Not sure what that was. Maybe cursing. Some of these drivers get a bit hot with each other at times, but this is some hot racing here. Frederick is looking around the outside of Bjorklund here. This is going to be very close between these drivers, and now Herc is going to look to try and split the difference between these drivers. They are very close, and they managed to get through clean. That is very close, and that is also very close with Frederick and Blanco there. And we got drivers nearly going 4 wide. This is absolutely unbelievable stuff here so far. It is Gonzaga. Yes, that is Gonzaga and Lower battling going through the Lacombe chicane. Those two are very close. Looked like Gonzaga was trying to go for the dive bomb there into that corner, but that was probably never going to work, so he bailed out of it. We got a 4-car battle here. We've got a 6-car battle up at the front. This is absolutely absurd.
That is off the hook, and that Blanco's entry there to Lacombe. Friedrich once again trying that outside pass on the entry to Lacombe. I think he broke a little deep, front end washed out, and Blanco took advantage and drove right past him like he was dragging an anchor. Blanco was always the opportunist, and we're seeing more of the same here today.
It's just the slipstream effect with these cars. It really has it just plays massively into the way these races go. And you got Bjorklund leading this pack. It might seem like he's going to be dragging an anchor going down these back straightaways, just hitting all that air, all that undisturbed air going down these back straightaways. It's basically these. I mean, we saw Road America. Some of these drivers could be up to 15 miles an hour quicker in the slipstream. So going down the Kemmel Straight, it's got to be it has to be an absurd difference in top speed if you're in the slipstream or if you're leading a pack. And I said it was a 6-car, well, it was a 4-car battle, that became a 5-car battle. Now it's a 6-car battle. If you look, it might become a 7-car battle very soon. It looks like Busen, who's running in the 10th position, is going to try and catch up to these drivers. And with how hard they're racing each other, he very well might catch up to this pack. I'm really at a loss for words.
Yeah,
this race has been so exciting.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and that is a great point, Ron. It sure is entertaining watching these guys dicing, taking these corners 3 wide, but they are slowing each other down. They're about 2 seconds off the pace that's being set by Halliburton up in P1, and as a result, cars are slowly adding themselves to the train. And by the end of this, a couple laps left, that might be quite a long train with some last-minute aggressive moves as we approach the checker.
Yeah, this is fantastic stuff here. We see some more battling going on here. That is Lower that we're following, and right behind him is Gebauer. Those two looked like they were going to try and go side by side coming through Lacombe, but that was never really on because Gebauer, he probably could have gone for that move if he wanted to, but that probably wouldn't have been the smartest decision if I'm being brutally honest. But throughout this field, we've got some absolutely awesome racing going on. We've got the battle we're following now in the teens. We've also got the battle really from 4th all the way down to 10th at this point. Actually, no, it's really 4th down to 9th. 10th may get involved. We were talking about Hudson earlier, who is our, and I believe still is, the biggest position gainer so far in this race, currently running in 13th. When we cut to a wide shot of this battle going down the main straightaway here, the start-finish straight here, you can see Hudson just slightly in the back of shot. The fact that Aaron Hudson running in 13th is close to being in the same shot as the drivers running in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is absolutely ridiculous. These drivers, you saw them, they weren't dicing for positions as much as they were on previous laps going down the Kemmel straightaway, but they're still trying to stay line astern. I think they're trying to form a bit of a peloton to try and pull away, but the time is running out in this race. We only have 2 laps left. It looks like Halliburton, barring a massive disaster on his end, it looks like he'll probably take another, it wasn't the most comfortable victory he had last time out in Road America, but it's certainly going to be a comfortable one. He's led pretty much this entire race and is currently leading by 2 seconds. We saw an interesting line there coming out of turn 1 and going into Eau Rouge and Radion there from Bjorklund. He was going towards the outside. That's interesting. I think he was mainly doing that just to break the slipstream to try and prevent Herc and Blanco getting a great run, but they have gotten a great run. It looks like they're going to go 3 wide coming into Lacombe. Blanco on the outside. Ooh, they just barely got through that. Blanco and Herc going side by side, coming through the Lacombe chicane. These drivers are racing hard, but they're racing clean. You gotta respect it. These drivers are really leaving nothing on the track right now. I mean, we don't have much time left, so I think we might see the aggression get pumped up even more in these final couple of laps.
Absolutely, and if last week is any indication, we saw Blanco bide his time. I think last week we talked about whether or not tire management was going to be an issue in the series this season, and we definitely saw Blanco turn up the wick the last couple of laps, pick up a couple of positions, and he's placed himself in a track position to potentially be able to do the same if he can find a way past Herc, and that's no small task.
Yeah, Herc is always a very fast driver. He's always been competitive in the series, even last year when it was basically like driving a completely different car compared to the way it drove last season, compared to how it drives this season. He is still always a force to be reckoned with in these races. Sometimes he's at the front. Most of the time he is towards the top 10, always at the top 10. Unless he makes a mistake, which we have seen sometimes. We saw it once last year, and that cost him dearly last time, but hopefully he won't have a mistake. Halliburton has started the last lap. It looks like he's going to take a commanding win. But the battle here is now between 4th, with Bjorklund running in 4th position, and Busen running all the way down in 10th. He has had a fairly quiet race. He's just been catching up to these drivers slowly and methodically. The 7 cars really, are separated by barely any air. This is absolutely ridiculous. We're seeing the line that Bjorklund tried running, not really towards the wall, running towards the grass coming out of turn 1. And I don't think that really helped him there. I think he has a big gap, but that is going to drop very fast. Going down the Camel straightaway, these drivers are going to be very close. Blanco's the first to pull out, trying to pull the move off on Herrick. I think Herrick is going to catch up very closely. Blanco, it looks like he's going to get the move done. They're going side by side into Lacombe like they've done the past couple of laps, but Blanco is not able to get the move done going around the outside, entering Lacombe. We see another change for position there. Hudson is battling with Cadora for 12th position. That might be 10 positions gained. Those drivers are very close. That's contact, and Lower spins off and goes into the grass. Tough break for him. He was running a very solid race, as we saw Sam Fitzpatrick go off and go through in the background. These drivers are still battling, though. That is the battle that we see right now between Gabauer and Gonzaga's ahead. That is Gabauer and Ianni battling, going through that series of corners. This might be another battle to look out on. I think the biggest battle, though, is that one up towards the front between 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. That is an absolutely absurd battle. Actually, I believe that number 10th runner of Busen has made some kind of mistake this lap, and he is dropping back really like a rock. So tough break for him. He's still going to get a top 10 unless something disastrous happens and he loses it to Samoa's. And we're following Kane Halliburton. He's been fast this season. He didn't drive the car last year, which can you really blame the man? But so far this season, he has been a force to be reckoned with. He won battling with Boots last week, and he's going to win in dominant fashion this week, taking the victory here at Spa-Francorchamps. It's a dominant win, and meanwhile, we're back at this battle. The drivers are very close, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any change of position. Yeah, Bjorklund coming out of the final corner and going on the main straightaway. He is going to take 4th. We have Herrick in 5th, Blanco in 6th, Frederick in 7th, Bremer in 8th, Lindlau in 9th, and Busen, who wasn't really involved in that battle on the last lap, in 10th. We're following the last few drivers that come across the line. That was an amazing race.
Yeah, fantastic, and really a drive in the park for Halliburton that time. Of course, last week he was involved in multiple lead changes back and forth. This one, kind of a drive in the park. I imagine he had a look on his face similar to his Homer Simpson icon there. And I'd like to quickly point out, for any viewers that don't know, this is not a league. This is not any kind of really organized event here. We are viewing and commentating on the top split of a public server. If you want to get in here with us, you too can be on Apex Racing TV, dicing in these fantastic radicals.
If you win, you might get an interview with us too. Just don't say anything rude, because then we'll get pilloried for it. But that is an absurd race. That was fantastic from start to finish. We saw a lot of dicing for position there. We saw some very hair-raising moments too. We're following Tim Burndy, who finished 3rd. he had a fairly quiet race. He just really stayed in third for the most part and really didn't show up on our screens. But as we've seen in this series, just not showing up on the screen and putting together a quiet race can pay dividends. That certainly did, as he comes home tonight in the third position, rounding off your podium of Halliburton and Baba. So we're going to take a look at the results here, as Halliburton scoring a fairly dominant win. I say dominant. 2.3 seconds is a fairly big gap, at least compared to how the rest of this field finished. We have Aaron Baba in second, Tim Birdie in third. Then we have that massive battle with Bjorklund in fourth, Hurrick in fifth, Blanco in sixth, Frederick in seventh, Bremer in eighth, and Lindlau in ninth. All of those drivers were separated by a little over 2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 full seconds for about 5 positions. That is insane. So we have Busen in 10th. He had a fairly quiet race. We had Samoas, who had that slowdown to serve on lap 1. That cost him dearly in this race. He finishes in 10th. Sorry, 11th. My apologies. I'm great at numbers again. We have Kadora in 12th. We have Hudson in 13th, who put together a quiet race. Had a mistake late on. I think we had a small little hiccup going through the chicane, but still gained the most positions of anyone in this race, I believe. So very good drive from him. Jorge Gonzaga finishes in 14th. Ayani finishes in 15th. Gebauer in 16th. Lamiri in 17th. Fitzpatrick in 18th. Certainly not the result he probably was looking for. Barry in 19th. We have Hesterman in 20th. We have Maruta, who qualified towards the back, finishing in 21st. We saw Lower have that off early on in that last lap. That was certainly a tough break for him. He finishes 22nd, and the last of the drivers on the lead lap, as we have Nagel, who's involved in that crash with Chesworth. Those two finish in 23rd and 24th, 2 laps down and 8 laps down respectively. I'm out of breath, man. That was a fantastic race.
Yeah, it certainly was, and real, 2 weeks in out of 12, looking forward to a lot more of this highly competitive driving in these fantastic cars for the rest of the year. Absolutely stunning.
These cars are racing absolutely wonderful this year. Last year the cars didn't drive too good. I know my experience, I'd probably it was a great motivator for me to complete any homework I had due, because I would just drive that car and be like, you know what, I don't want to drive, so then I'd actually do my homework. That car did not drive good last year. It's driving fantastic this year, and as we saw from that race, it is racing fantastic as well. That was an absurd race. We've got a very interesting schedule on our hands throughout the rest of this year, and I think it's going to lead to some very fantastic racing. I'm looking forward to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is up next? You got the schedule in front of you there, Ron?
Oh, that is a very good question. I think you caught me a bit underprepared here.
Take a quick look here.
I'll take a look myself. This will be the final race of the evening. See who's airing as faster, so we can load up what schedule comes next.
Yeah, how about a little Green Hell next Friday? You're not going to want to miss that one.
Nordschleife, that's usually the season finale in the series. It has been for the past 2 seasons here in 2023 for the Radical iRacing Challenge, but it's going to be round 3, and that is going to be a very interesting race. So we go from the Nordschleife next week, same time here, 5 p.m. EST. I'm not sure what time it is in Europe, because I don't really care about Europe. Sorry to any Europeans watching this. Same time here on Apex Racing TV on Friday. We've got the Nordschleife next week, then Alton Park, Laguna Seca. We have Jerez coming to the schedule. The 6th round of the season. Then we have Silverstone Sebring at night, which is certainly going to be a race that I'm looking forward to. Then we have Road Atlanta, another fantastic track. Then we have Mount Panorama, Interlagos in Brazil, the same track that Formula 1 races on yearly. And then we have Canadian Tire to round off the season. So this is going to be a fantastic season ahead of us. And I think we have an interview on our hands for the 2nd week in a row. And I believe we have an interview with Kane Halliburton, your race winner. Certainly a different race than last week. Last week you were in that great battle with Boots. This week you were pretty much running your own race, really in your own postal code throughout most of this race. How did it feel?
Yeah, it certainly didn't feel like that. I was having to push quite hard. I knew one small mistake and Aaron would be back with me, so although it looked like I had a decent gap, it was definitely not as easy as it looked.
This field is always very tight. A lot of these drivers are very competitive, and you've seemed to conquer the field so far. So we just went over the schedule. The next race of the season is at the Norderschleife. How do you fancy your chances there?
Nordschleife, it's, there's so much different factors compared to a normal race, so it's hard to predict. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Well, your answer to my first question kind of ruined the joke I was going to make about asking whether or not you had cruise control in that thing, because it looked like you were certainly in command of this race, but as you said, certainly had to push very hard. The caliber of competition in this field is really insane. Can you take the viewers at home through how hard you had to push to try and maintain that gap and take the victory tonight?
Yeah, the first few laps I was pretty much on the limit, pushing hard as I could. And then, the middle part of the race, the tires started to go off because of that. So I had to dial it back a little bit and let the tires come back to me. And then 100% again. Very on edge, almost lost it a couple times. But, when you have a driver like Erin behind you, you have to, take those risks, keep it on the limit.
I think that was a very composed drive from you. That was a fantastic drive. I hope to see you more throughout this year. You've put a clinic on this field in the first 2 races, and hopefully we can see you for the next 10 in this season. Ian, thank you so much. You have anyone you want to shout out?
Yep, shout out to you guys for putting on a good broadcast as usual, and everyone in the field for showing up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the shout out, and as we've said, as Kane, your race winner, just said, anyone that wants to come out, feel free to do so. This is an official series, so if you want to just come out, have some time on a Friday, and want to race in these cars and possibly be on Apex Racing TV, there you go. Kane, thank you so much for the interview. I hope to see you throughout the rest of this year, buddy.
Thanks. Bye.
Kane Halliburton, your race winner, everyone. Fantastic drive from him. Closing thoughts to round off this broadcast. Absolutely amazing race, and I'm really speechless. What do you think, JR?
Well, it was really fantastic, and it was interesting to see the cars running on, I don't know, would you call Road America the American version of Spa? Pretty close, anyway. High-speed corners, long straights, and the character of the track in front of us is obviously completely different, with the 100+ corners, many of them low speed, very challenging, unforgiving course. So we're going to see a completely different race next week. I'm sure it's going to be just as exciting, but we'll have a way different vibe than either week 1 or week 2.
It looks like we have time for another interview here, this time with your second place runner, Aaron Baba, who had a fairly quiet race from our perspective. We didn't really see it too much on the screen there. How was the race there, buddy?
Hi guys, what's up? It was good, The pace is there, but I had an issue with the start, so I light up my tires a little bit, and then the car got twitchy on the first corner, and then Kane was gone, so I had to wait a little bit for Tim to pass him, and then put the chase to Kane. The gap stayed the same, so yeah, just unlucky the first corner, but yeah.
Yeah, we've seen tire management has definitely played a role into a lot of these races. It definitely comes into play later on when the tires are really just cooked on these cars. Going to Norderschleife next week, a track with just an absurd amount of corners, how heavy do you think tire management is going to play into that race?
I don't know really with this build. This is the first time that I will drive Nordschleife, but the past seasons I think the tires it was not a big of an issue. You just need to not slide everywhere, and then it will be okay. But I have faith in the new build, so I think the car is okay. Here on Spa, the car is also really stable. I had just issue with the turn 1. That was because of the start, but besides that, no issues with the car. It was really good. So I had to push a couple of times a little bit more. I was on the limit to chase Kane, but yeah, I think the car feels really good. So I'm really curious to see what it will be next week.
Well, I'll tell you, from my personal experience driving this thing before we kick the year off, the car definitely feels a lot better than it did last season. And I think, final question here, we saw you're fairly close throughout most of the race with Birdie. How hard was it to try and keep him at bay? Because we've seen throughout this season and throughout last season as well how big of a role Slipstream can play into just trying to overtake another car. So how did you try and keep him at bay throughout this race?
To be honest, I was just looking ahead to catch Kane. I didn't see much behind, but yeah, I saw him a couple of times close on the straight. I expected maybe some kind of a push on the straight because you can bump draft on the straight, but he didn't do it. But it's okay. So yeah, the slipstream is really big. So I think on Nordschleife on the straights it will be really difficult to pull away.
That's definitely going to be a very interesting factor to come into play next week. So I think final question, we always ask this, you have anyone you want to shout out or thank at the end of this interview?
Shout out to you guys and to everybody in the Radical community. The past week, the week before on Road America, it was me driving with. I was at an internet cafe. I was dual bouts because I couldn't log in on my account because the registration was closed. Only you could register on the UI because of the 6 hours of watching Glen. So I had no password, and I talked to the guys there. Just sign me in with an account. I don't care. So yeah, that was the case on Road America. But I will be here for the rest of the season to race with Kane and the other guys. Really awesome.
Well, that's certainly news to us. We were wondering who this mysterious Jules Boots character was. We now have our answer.
Yeah, it
Driving
was me.
at an internet cafe.
That
is awesome.
Yeah. I couldn't log in, so yeah.
Yeah, that is that is very funny. Thank you very much for the other kind words about us, and thank you for the interview and fantastic drive, and we hope to see you throughout the rest of this year.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
great drive. See you next week.
There is your second place runner, Baba, and I believe we do not have any more interviews, so I believe that'll be it for this race, and, well, for this broadcast. Fantastic race. We have high hopes throughout the rest of this year, which is something we really couldn't say this time last season for the Radicals, but we have high hopes this year. These cars are racing fantastic. These drivers are racing clean, and that's really all you can ask for these drivers, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. So, for myself, Ron Mullins, J.R. Gregory joining me in the commentary booth, Samuli Kumo doing a wonderful job as he usually does in the production booth, and also a shout out to Kane Halliburton and Enrin Baba for allowing us to interview them at the end of this broadcast. So, that's just about it. I'm Ron Mullins. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you for the Nordschleife broadcast next week. Bye-bye.